If you're looking for a quick and simple beginner sewing project, these little tote bags are the best. I'm Jan Howell. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm all about showing you all kinds of tips and tricks for your DIY projects to make them easier, less stressful, and I may even save you a little money. Today I'm going to show you how to make these adorable tote bags. They are not only super easy to make, they come in handy for so many things. Because they're so lightweight, you can easily fold them up, stuff them in your purse, take them to the market. They're great for book bags, on-the-go crochet projects and craft projects, whatever you want to stuff in these things. There is no interfacing needed, just some scraps of fabric, which I know you have in your stash. I'm going to show you using a regular sewing machine and a serger, and show you how to make a French seam, which sounds kind of complicated and fancy, but it's really easy and really gives you a nice finished seam. Of course, I'm going to show you some tips and tricks, so make sure you stay with me till the end of the video, because maybe you haven't seen some of these basic tips before. Get out your sewing machine and let's get started. Let's quickly go over the materials and items that you'll need. You'll need your fabric, of course. I'm just using regular quilter's cotton. You can use canvas, you can use denim, whatever you want. And as you can see, it's not lined. And I like to make things a little whimsy and colorful. So I have used different colors on the front and the back and different colors of fabric and print for the straps. Of course, you can make these all the same color, but as some of you know, I like to mix things up a little bit. You'll need fabric scissors, or I really like using a rotary cutter and ruler and mat to get those straight edges and to cut it out a little bit more quickly. Some fabric clips or pins, some kind of marking device. I use a heat activated pen which disappears after you press it or have heat, an ironing board, and it always is nice to have a seam ripper. Not that you're going to need it, but even the best of us need to unpick once in a while. And if you want to add a label or tag, have those handy, and I'll show you how to apply those. The first thing that you'll want to do is remove any selvage edges on your fabric piece. Using a ruler and your rotary cutter makes this really easy. Then you'll need to cut off and trim the other edge of the fabric, which may be unraveled and crooked. So now that you have two edges, even and straight, you can fold the fabric in half, and we're going to cut out 2 strips of fabric for the straps, 4 inches by 26 inches. And then you'll need to cut them to length, which is 26 inches. Now we need to cut out the front and the back of the bag, and those panels will be 17.5 inches by 19 inches. And if you're using the serger, you only need to cut them 17.5 by 18 inches. So you'll need 2 panels. They can match or they can be different, like I'm using this yellow print with the black strap and a red strap. This is a really helpful tip when you're pressing and folding straps and things like this, is to use this spray starch. I put a piece of wrapping paper down on my ironing board, place the wrong side facing up, and give both pieces a good squirt. Fold the strap in half and press it. This will give you a nice crisp edge where you can fold the bottom part up and press, and then fold the top edge down halfway to meet the next. And then you'll fold that whole thing in half and press. And it really does give you a nice crisp edge and makes it a lot easier. Now here's a tip for using your thread and matching thread color, is I like to use this gray, almost white thread. It matches almost anything. I've set my machine to a regular straight stitch. I'm using a piece of scrap fabric as my starter fabric whenever I am top stitching. This will eliminate the bird nesting that usually comes when you are starting a stitch. I'm using a 1/8 inch seam allowance. There's a little red mark on my presser foot that I'm going to use and guide along that edge. If you're batch sewing a bunch of bags, this is a tip, is to thread one in right after the other. And then you're going to flip it to the other side and top stitch down the other side. And look, they're already connected. Just line those up. Saves a lot of time and thread. And you clip off those scrap pieces of fabric. And if you want to add a tag, find the place, the center of the bag where you want it to be. I like to use a piece of painter's tape to hold it in place. So once I've got that centered, I'm going to tape it in place, take it to the sewing machine, and top stitch that. Since we will be sewing a French seam, you are going to place the wrong sides together first. And a tip when you're using those little fabric clips, the rounded side goes on the bottom. So it's meant to be rounded so it'll scoop under the fabric a lot easier. Just something you might want to know. If you want to add a label to the side of your bag and you're sewing a French seam, you need to accommodate for the seam allowance, which will be 3/4 inches from the edge of the fabric. So I'm going to mark that so I know where to put my tag. To sew down using a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around, pivoting at the corners, and I put down a piece of painter's tape to help guide me when I'm using that 1/4 inch seam allowance, because it's not very easy to see on my machine. You want to backstitch at the beginning and the end of your seam. Clip the corners. And if you have any stray threads or uneven edges, clip those off. Press the seam allowance open. This will make pressing the other side a lot easier. Then turn the bag wrong side facing out and poke out those corners with your turning stick. Now to give that a pressing, it's so much easier because we pre-pressed those seam allowances. I'm going to remove that 1/4 inch seam allowance because I'm going to use the edge of my presser foot for a 3/8 inch seam allowance now, sewing around the 3 edges and pivoting at the corners. Backstitch. Now we're going to hem the top of the bag. Measure down 2 inches and using your disappearing pen or your heat activated ink, mark that 2-inch line. And then you're going to measure down another inch and draw another line. I'm going to do that on both sides. Again, I'm going to press using that spray starch just to get a nice crisp edge of the fabric. So you fold the top edge down to that 1 inch and then you'll fold that over to the 1-inch line. Now to mark where the straps go, we're going to measure in 4.5 inches and mark a line. And this is where the straps will go. We're going to put that edge of the strap along that line, marked line, and pin it and clip it in place. You want to make sure that the straps are not getting twisted. Then you're going to flip it up again and clip it in place so you've got a double fold there. Do that for both straps. Align the edge of the strap with that line. Make sure you're not twisted. If your sewing machine has a removable arm, remove that. It will make this process a lot easier. I'm going to slip my fabric in, hold the thread when we're top stitching, that top thread for just a few first stitches, and that will alleviate that bird nesting underneath. I'm using a 1/8 inch seam allowance from that edge. Again, I have a little red mark on my foot. Take your time, and you're sewing through all those layers, the strap and the hem. Hold the thread and top stitch along that top edge, folding that strap up and making sure that it's perpendicular. Now we're going to stabilize the strap by marking an X on the front, and then we're going to sew that. Following the previous stitching lines. You can mark that with a pin or just eyeball it. You want to back stitch. Do that for all 4 ends of your strap. Clip all threads. And press the edge again. And pressing the fabric will also get rid of any lines or markings that you've made. Fold the edge corners in and then turn it right side out. That will give you a nice crisp corner, or use your turning stick. And we're going to give that a good press, those edges. Making sure if you have a label not to press the iron on the label, it will melt it. I'm super excited how these colors turned out. What do you think? Okay, let me show you how you would go about it if you wanted to use the serger. I have decided to use these colors for this next bag. And instead of putting the wrong sides together, we're going to start putting the right sides together. And if you want to add a tag, this is how you do it. Stick the folded edge inside, and our seam allowance is just going to be 3/8 of an inch. So we want to determine where we want that to be. I'm going to go to the sewing machine and just base that in place. When you're sewing with the serger, place the fabric just along the edge of the presser foot, and you'll barely be trimming off any of the fabric with a knife. Come to the end of the fabric, stitch a couple stitches past the fabric, lift up the presser foot, pull the fabric back a little bit so you can rotate the fabric, and then scoot the fabric in towards the needle and start sewing again. So a couple stitches back past the fabric, lift up the presser foot, reapply the fabric underneath until it hits the needle, put the presser foot back down and sew off. Pretty simple, right? Now we're going to finish off the top edge by just serging around the top, and that knife will cut off just a little bit of fabric and any threads that are there. And you come back to where you started, sew over just a little bit and pull it off and sew off at a 45-degree angle and clip your threads. And instead of having to make a double roll, you're just going to fold it over 1 inch and top stitch. and proceed like you did with the other straps. So look how cute this serging method turned out. This is what it looks like. I've top stitched just like we did the others. You have your nice serge seam, a cute tag, and on this one you have your French seam, which looks so professional and nice. These bags make great gifts, and they're a great make and sell project. If you wanted to add a box bottom to these bags, it would be really simple. Check out my website blog post in the link in the description, and I will show you how to do that. If you haven't seen my tutorial where I show you how to measure and know how to cut those box corners if you want to alter a bag, that tutorial will give you all the details, and it comes with a free PDF. So make sure you're checking that out. If you're liking my content, make sure you give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends and family, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and make sure you're clicking on that bell so you can be notified when I put new tutorials up. If you'd like to check out other fun projects, DIY, things around the house, other sewing crafts and sewing patterns, check out my website, youmakeitsimple.com. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section. If you want to find out what products or things that I favor or use, I will have also links in the description below. Thanks so much for watching. Have fun making tote bags, and we'll see you in the next tutorial.